Zawadi.
I'm Reggie.
And we are a couple from Brooklyn, New York that lives part-time in South Africa. Welcome to the B-side of South Africa. So today we are going to talk about traveling, what you need to know before traveling to South Africa. So let's start with what you need to, let's start first with the travel itself.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part.
Yeah.
So the travel is long.
There's no short way around it.
It's
a long
crazy
trip.
long.
Now, but here's the thing. People, when you think about traveling to Africa, they think about a trip being like a big deal. In a way it is, but in a way it's not. It's just a trip, right? But there is a lot of time involved with travel to South Africa specifically.
Well, your sister says that she doesn't want to come because of the travel.
Yeah, I know.
I think a lot of people
She's like 15 hours.
pause
I can't do
in
it.
thinking about coming to Africa because of the travel. And I mean, we're going to be honest. I don't get excited when I think about traveling here. It's 14 and a half hours to get here and 15 and a half hours to get back. And I mean, that's a long time.
There's a lot of time, and I'm a nervous flyer, so I don't love getting on planes, and certainly not for any extended period of time. But there's different ways you can do it, so we'll talk about that. So we just wanted to get that out of the way. To come to South Africa from the United States is a long trip, particularly if you're not leaving from either New York or Atlanta, where there are direct flights. So if you're leaving from any other part of the country, you have to take a connecting flight to other places, and so it may be even longer.
Yeah, it could be longer, but doing a layover actually can be good. Number one, because your flight will be less expensive and generally less expensive. And then, just do a really long layover. It gives you a chance to kind of take a break. Like, for instance, if you decide to go to the UK first or to Paris first, do a really long layover, like maybe 6 hours, and take a little walking break and visit Paris and then get back on the flight.
So we've done it both ways, right? So we've done it with the layovers and we've done it with the direct flights, and we come to realize for us, the best way is the direct flight. We like to get on the plane, get on the long flight, and just get it over with. But we have done the layovers and enjoyed, places that we stopped in.
Yeah, we went to Dubai once.
Yeah.
We stopped in Egypt once.
Yeah, we stopped in London once, but when we stopped in London, what made that nice was we had one of the lounges. So, you can purchase access to some of these flight lounges. Some of them are airport lounges, or like Amex has a lounge. And or if you are a member of Amex, then you'll have access to their lounges. And that made the longer layover. I think we had like a 4-hour layover in London. It made it very civilized. You can take a shower if you need to. You can take a nap. There's food. So lounges might be a way to kind of soften the blow. But if you're traveling and you want to see a city, like she said, Paris or Dubai or one of those places, you can spend the entire day there and then get on a flight and connecting flight and get to South Africa. So the cost, that's another thing that people think about. So in addition to the time, the flights to Africa are not the cheapest flights in the world, but they're not as expensive as you think. You can get more affordable flights if you are doing more layovers, for instance, or more stops. So you can get a flight sometimes for like $900 round trip. If you're doing, some layovers, or you have longer layovers. And if you're doing a direct flight, you can get them as cheap as $1,300 round trip for the direct flight, but it depends on the season that you're flying. If you're flying during the high season here in South Africa, it's going to be maybe 4 or 5 times as much. We saw prices where there were economy seats that were $6,000 round trip, and the business class seats were $17,000 round trip.
During Christmas.
Yeah. So
we tried to book some flights like right around Christmas, and the cost was like 5 times as much. So if you're thinking about coming, you want to consider definitely the time of the year.
Yeah, very important. I'm going to talk a little bit about, so what do we do to prepare for this long flight and this long travel? There's a couple of things you want to think about, right? So one of the things I think about, because I'm a nervous flyer, I think about how am I going to occupy my time. It's not easy for me to sleep on planes. So I take my iPad and I'll fill it up with things that I want to binge watch, right? Because I'm busy. A lot of times you don't get to see everything that you want to see. So maybe all those things you wanted to see, put them on an iPad. By the time you get through a season of something, you'll already be there.
Yes.
Right? That's one way to think about it.
Yes. Another consideration when you're flying such a long distance is water, because I'm the type of person that sweats a lot and I dehydrate a lot. But whether you sweat like I do, Might be a function of age. But whether or not you sweat or you dehydrate a lot, you will get dehydrated on a long flight. So
those planes are dry.
yeah, so ask for water. Anytime they come around, offering something to drink, don't grab coffee and don't grab, well, unless you just really want it. But make sure you stay hydrated. Take water on the plane with you and drink constantly. It's such a long flight, and it really impacts your circulation. And so, just to guard against that, buy a good pair of compression socks, wear those for the duration of the flight, and you should be fine. Oh yeah, another thing, if you have an issue with noise, you might want to bring earplugs because one times out of two, 50% of the time, we end up sitting by a crying baby that screams almost the entire time. Yeah, the last flight we took, there were two babies, one in front of us.
They were dueling.
Yeah, they were dueling, crying. So might want to bring earplugs if that bothers you.
Most of the time on those planes, they're kind of cold. This last one wasn't so cold, but most of the time they're cold, and for me, a hoodie has been a lifesaver because you can put that hood over. Also, it helps you to block out a lot of activity when you have the hood over. So if you try to get some sleep, but hoodies, very helpful on a long flight.
Now we'll talk about what to prepare for pre-flight.
So, there's usually some anxiety around this because when making a big trip, particularly if you're traveling to the continent for the first time, you think you need to pack everything and the kitchen sink. And that might be true for certain countries on the continent, but for South Africa, that's not the case at all.
No, not at all. It's like traveling to another state. They have everything here. There's nothing you need to be particularly concerned about missing or needing. It's basically just regular travel.
If there are some toiletry brands that you just can't live without, you're like, I only use this one brand, then maybe you take that with you because it may not be an exact match of the particular brand. But in terms of the products, every product that you can imagine is available here. You can pack very light. My first few trips here, in fact, after my very first trip back in the 90s, but after that, I was able to travel with a carry-on. I did that a couple of times, and then I was like, wait a minute, I'm giving up my free check bag. So they give you one check bag for free. So I said, I want my check bag. So then I started checking the bag. But you can come with a carry-on really because there's not a bunch of stuff you need to take with you, right? Just think about traveling from one state to another. That's pretty much the way you pack. It'll be different in terms of the clothing that you pick out, though.
Yeah, definitely. You have to consider the season because they're in the Southern Hemisphere. So whatever season we're in the United States is the opposite. Like, for instance, we're here now during the Christmas season. It just turned summer. December 21st was summer. So if you're coming, let's say, in the spring, it's their fall. And if you're coming in the summer, it's their winter. Yep. So those are basically when you're packing, those are the things you need to consider.
When you hear about people traveling to the continent, a big topic is vaccinations and what types of vaccinations you need. One of the great things about traveling to South Africa is you don't need any additional vaccinations at all. You can just come, right? So you don't need any special shots or anything like that. You can just get on a plane and go. There are also no special visas required either. So you can use your American passport. It gives you an automatic 90-day visa upon arrival. So those are things you can take off your list in terms of preparing to come. Another thing that is pretty important is travel insurance. I'm a big travel insurance person because I've had an experience of traveling with a family member who didn't have travel insurance, and it was very challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have any travel insurance, and that's when I learned.
And he got sick,
So that's when I learned that you gotta have travel insurance. Even if you're making a small trip, even if I'm just going on a Caribbean cruise, I get travel insurance. Because travel insurance ensures that we never plan to get sick, particularly anything major to happen. Nobody's, planning for that to happen. So it always happens when you don't expect it. And the travel insurance allows you to cover those medical bills, which will be very high, or if there's transportation costs to get you from where you are back home. And if you need medical transit, that's very, very expensive. Travel insurance covers that. Also, it covers things like if you're connections that don't happen or flights that get canceled or your luggage gets lost. All of those things are covered with a good travel insurance plan.
Okay, next are the considerations that you should make when you arrive, upon arrival. One of the first, I think, is the biggest one is the jet lag.
Yeah, because 6 hours ahead when we're in daylight savings time in the United States, and they're 7 hours ahead when we're in standard time in the United States, in Eastern time. So if you live in the Midwest, then it's, additional hour, and if you live on the West Coast, it's even more.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to take you about 3 days, 2 to 3 days, I think, to adjust. It depends. It's for each individual, but it usually takes me about 2 to 3 days to get over the jet lag. But then I also work while I'm here every single day. So I'm still on a work schedule, and that sometimes poses challenges. There's some advantages as well, because we're 7 hours ahead here in South Africa. And so that means that I'll put in 7 hours before their workday even starts. So by the time it's, let's say, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they're just now, folks are just now getting up in New York City at 9 a.m. and my workday is done. But the disadvantage is I'll start getting emails, I'll start getting the calls, I'll start getting all the questions, and sometimes Zoom meetings, all those things are set up, and so I end up having an extended workday until about sometimes 10, 11 o'clock at night, which for them is, let's see, 11 minus 7, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon is very standard and typical for a Zoom call for me. So sometimes I'm taking Zoom calls as late as 11 and midnight. So that's the disadvantage, but you have to consider that 7-hour delay. Another consideration when you land is money. A lot of times people are worried about money exchange. Where can you get money exchange? You can get money exchange right in the airport. You can do it, of course, before at one of the banks, or you can do it when you arrive at the bank. But I don't think that's a big deal, because they're big tappers here. They tap everywhere, probably more so than the United States. So you don't need necessarily a lot of cash on hand. Tap meaning you can use your phone or you can use your credit card to tap anywhere. So you should be fine. That shouldn't be a huge worry. You don't have to travel with a whole lot of cash. Another concern folks might have when arriving is medication, and well, maybe that's not a concern if you're not taking medication or if you're bringing your own medication, but just in case, if you're worried about losing your medication or having to renew it while you're out and away, you can do that easily here. You can walk into any drop-in clinic, and it's fairly easy for them to write a prescription. You can get the prescription filled at a local pharmacy within a day. So that part's easy.
One thing you should know, though, things that you can typically get over the counter in the United States, you have to go to the pharmacy counter to get like cough medicine or Tylenol or things like that. You can't just, and you have to give them some information. You may have to, show them your passport. You can't just go pull it off the counter and go pay for it. So you want to keep that in mind as well.
Okay, another concern sometimes for folks is water. So the water here in South Africa apparently is the best on the continent, or at least that's what we've been told by other Saffers, that their water is perfectly fine for drinking. One
of our friends got offended. He said he gets offended by Americans coming here thinking they have to boil water. He's like, our water is cleaner than your water. So he took offense to it.
Yeah, but we're bottled water drinkers in the United States anyway, which may or may not be a good thing. Yeah. So if you feel safer just drinking bottled water, that's fine. It's very inexpensive here if you want to do that. But just to let you know that the water generally is safe. I've never gotten sick, and I do rinse my vegetables and fruits in the water here and haven't gotten sick yet. You can bring some veggie rinse, which I use back in the States and also use here, and that helps with making you super secure around your fruits and your vegetables when you're rinsing them off.
Yeah, I'm a tap water drinker, and I drink tap water here, and I had no problems. It was fine. Also, language considerations. One of the great things about South Africa is that most people speak English. And so, and all of the signage is in English, everything is in English, so it's easy to find your way around, navigate, speak with people, shop, everything, because it's all in English. So that helps me. I don't have multiple languages that I speak, so that really helps me a lot. When you arrive to the airport, there's gonna be a lot of people trying to offer you rides, and I would say just take an Uber. Uber is everywhere. It's easy to get. Your same Uber app that you use in the United States is the same Uber app that you use here. And so you can just be able to find where Ubers pick up in the airport. You go to the Uber pickup and you just wait for your Uber. So
it's better because you're being tracked with Uber. You're being tracked with the taxis. You're not.
Yeah. So just do Uber until you get acclimated, and then you can choose other modes of transportation. So thank you for hanging with us in this episode of South Africa to B-Side. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also hit the notifications bell so that you get alerted when you get new videos. And I want to thank all of the people who have been watching the B-side, who have left comments, and who've been very supportive. We appreciate you.
Yes, we do. All right, so we'll see you on the next episode.
Okay,
Later.
goodbye.